Hi guys, welcome to the next podcast in YarninBlak. I've got a really great guest on tonight, Naz Dickerson, described, if you Google search her, as one of the amazing new talents, but she's been around for a while, so I'm not exactly sure it's new talent anymore. But Naz, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who you are.
Yes, so I'm what do you want to know? I'm Nyoongah and Burmese woman from Western Australia, originally, now based in regional Victoria. I'm an actor, writer and director. I have one big adult son and have been living in Victoria for around 10 years now. So yeah, been Victorian based for quite a while.
And you've just actually moved a couple of years out of town, haven't you?
I have, yes. We're down in the southwest now, down in regional Vic by the coast, which is absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit, how old were you when you knew that you wanted to get into the arts?
I was really lucky. I actually knew quite young, probably the earliest I can remember is probably about 8 or 9 years old. Really wanted to do Johnny Young Talent Time School. And I used to beg my mum to put me in classes. Obviously we couldn't afford it, but you know, she always promised me that it would happen one day. And so, yes, quite young, knew that I wanted to be in performing arts. And it was probably year 8, I think I did my first show with, like a high school production. Probably the only thing I did at high school.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was a show called Bats, and I played Clyde from Bonnie and Clyde, and I think I had one line.
And that you knew from then that you needed to get into this.
I did, yeah. It's funny because I was a pretty big, I was a delinquent, I was pretty rebellious, and so the fact I was turning up every day to anything was amazing to my mum and the teachers. But it was the only thing that I ever felt engaged with at school. And I think it's the only thing I ever got an A in or a decent grade.
Yeah. And then after school, I did a bit of research. You did a diploma of performance arts?
I did. I studied at Adelaide Centre for the Arts in Adelaide. Yeah. And that actually did a 6-month Indigenous introductory course to start with. Which, yeah, was sort of really random. My sister came home with a flyer one day. I thought, hey, that sounds all right. I had a 2 or 3-year-old, I think my son was at the time. So it was just a way for me to get out of the house and do something. Obviously, always been interested in theatre. So, yeah, started there in 2003. And I didn't actually graduate my diploma course, but I spent 3 years at the school in total. So, I'd say I studied a diploma. I didn't technically graduate.
Oh, that's at least you got marks for attendance.
That's right.
So in the diploma, is that where you kind of learnt to do writing and performing and other what did you get out of the course?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me that I got out of the course was the language I needed to kind of explain my processes as an artist. I think I had techniques and I had some kind of tools as an actor. You naturally grow these things, as you're doing your thing, making faces in the mirror, whatever. You kind of grow your little bag of tools and know what you can do, but acting school definitely gives you the language for it, all of the I guess academic language that you need to be able to relate in the industry. Now I guess I'd be confident to hold my weight against a famous actress. If I was put on the same project, I wouldn't feel like I was at a loss. I just maybe am not as experienced.
Yeah. What do you enjoy more? Acting, directing, writing?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Acting is thrilling and scary. I think I enjoy directing and I think that's because my mind naturally goes to the visuals when we're talking about creating work. Even as an actor, I can't help but sit there and imagine, oh, it's going to look like this, and the lighting should do this, and the sound should do this. So I think that's a director's brain kind of naturally coming into play there. I really enjoy it, and it's meaty and satisfying for me, directing.
Yeah. What about writing?
Love writing, but actually, there's a really great quote. I can't remember whose quote it is, but it goes like this. I don't like writing, but I love having written. So I do love it when I've had a good stint of writing. At the moment, I'm writing something a little bit difficult. The subject matter is a little heavy, and I can feel my subconscious not wanting to address it. So I'm having to force myself some days to kind of sit down and just get an hour of writing out. But I really enjoy writing as well. It's a great way to channel stories and channel things.
Yeah. Now, I saw a quote from you actually that said, and I've got it written down here because I really liked it. It says, "I've been telling stories for the last 25 years and will continue to do so until I can't do any more."
Yeah.
Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, that sounds like me.
It was actually on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Oh, is it? All right. Yeah. So that's probably actually recent. Yeah. No, I think, I've tried to do some normal jobs. When I moved to Victoria, I actually I studied business admin because I'd never done, a regular 9 to 5 before. And so I had that experience, and it didn't last long. Ended up straight back in the theatre. It's just what I have to do. I don't think I can do anything else. Even if I was doing, like I was, youth work for a little while, I still find a way to bring theatre into it, or to bring storytelling into it. So yeah, I guess for me, storytelling is not a path I chose, but a path I have to walk.
And you're not scared to tackle topics that are hard or difficult to talk about, do you?
No, I guess there's lots of things that could block or stifle your creativity if you let them. Some of the best work, dares to be not necessarily politically correct, dares to offend, dares to shock, and definitely dares to delve into tougher issues. What I'm writing about at the moment is a what if kind of version of where we could be if things don't change on certain issues. And it's kind of a raw look at, like, what would Australia be like if we were in civil war? Like, what would that mean for us? How does that change our society, and we can never come back from? So love to tackle those tough subjects, but always with a nice, entertaining love story or something,
Yeah, they have to glamorize it a little bit.
Exactly.
One of the plays that I really enjoyed was The Giver of Life that you wrote.
Yes.
It was, to me, one of the most amazing stories, generational stories, but also such a beautiful women's story as well.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what inspired you to write that?
Inspiration for me came directly from my mother's experience, being a woman that was stolen. She was stolen at 2 years old, along with 4 of her siblings. That was the first 5 that Nan and Pop had together, and then they had another 5 who were also, removed by welfare. So my family has had quite a long history with the welfare system. 3 generations that we know of were removed. And so that was my way of kind of unpacking what it means to carry intergenerational trauma, but not to be defined by it. I think for me, Ngarngk, Giver of Life, was absolutely a story about love and motherhood. But they just, they're women that happen to have been through some really traumatic stuff, but above all, remained a family.
Yeah. And I do want to say thank you for sharing that story with an audience, because I know, as I said, I was so moved by it.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful storytelling. But some of our viewers that are online are also mental health first aid instructors. I know that. And you've appeared in a mental health first aid video as well.
Yes, I have.
For those people that don't remember, you were, I think your name was Kate, and you'd come down from you've moved because you broke up with Tom, and you arrived down. You arrived down into the country, and you had a panic attack at the shopping centre, and you didn't want to go back again.
That's right. Yeah. And I had a sister girl come around to check on me and kind of crack the shits at her. Yeah, that was a funny one. I don't do a lot of film, so it was really bizarre watching myself back. But those type of projects, I feel really like it's kind of a way of giving back as well. I've got the lived experience of anxiety, but also it's a video that's aimed at, First Nations communities. So that's important to me.
Yeah. What's your plans for this year?
Plans for this year? Well, I've actually just started work at Victorian College of the Arts. So I'll be working there as one of the theatre lecturers, putting together my first few lesson plans for the year, which is lovely. And hopefully I'll be doing a number of projects with them across the 3-year cohort. And then also I've got a little bit of work. I'm actually getting a chance to go home and do some work this year, which is lovely. I'm going to spend 3 weeks in Perth in June to dramaturg some new works that are coming up in a playwriting festival run by Yirramboi Theatre Company. So I started out with Yirramboi back in 95. That was the first Aboriginal theatre company I worked with as a teenager. So it's very, very much a homecoming for me, and I'm really excited.
It's a bit like a circle about
going back. Absolutely.
Yeah. And all your family, most of your family still live in WA?
Most of my extended family do. I have siblings dotted about the country. I've got a sibling in Canberra. I've got a couple of siblings in Adelaide. A few siblings in Adelaide, actually, 3. And and then my brother and other immediate family like first cousins and all that are all over in WA. So yeah, that's where all the mob is.
And you've been with your partner now 10 years or so?
I have. We're coming up on 11 this year. So yeah, I'm really grateful that she was here to help ground me in this new Victorian community because she's grown up here. So yeah, we're hitting 11 years this year.
Yeah. A quick question. How did you guys meet?
We actually met at a theatre show, funnily enough.
Yeah.
So we met at Jack Charles versus the Crown, and rest in peace, Uncle. We called him our Cupid. So it was a huge loss for us last year. But yeah, we met at Uncle Jack's show.
Oh, beautiful.
In Adelaide.
He was such an amazing man and such an amazing speaker as well. I met him probably about 15, 16 years ago, if not a little bit more, at Monash University when they actually invited him to be a guest speaker, and I was a guest speaker on the same panel. And every year after that, on my birthday, he sent me a message to say happy birthday because he remembered it because it was the same day that we did the panel. If that makes sense.
That's so sweet.
And I've still got his last message from the November before. Actually,
how sweet.
Yeah, happy birthday message. So yeah. But his voice, every time I hear his voice still, he's like a bit like the David Attenborough of Aboriginal comedy.
Absolutely. Well, my partner and I were lucky enough to work with him on a production a couple of years back. We were working as crew, so we spent a lot of time backstage with Uncle, and oh my goodness, yeah, very precious memories of getting him and his dressing room ready, getting his costumes prepped, and just all the banter backstage. Very special man.
Okay. So do you have any role models yourself in either writing or acting?
Very, very, very early on, I do remember as a as a young person in Perth, I remember seeing a flyer for Leah Purcell's Box the Pony. And I didn't really understand what theatre was or what a theatre show was. And I didn't really understand what it meant for an Aboriginal woman to be doing this one-woman show addressing something, an issue so great like domestic violence. And I never got to see the show, but I know that it would have been amazing. And that was, for me, something that inspired me from really young. And so definitely trailblazers like, Leah Purcell. I've been blessed to work with Rachel Mazza over the years. Lisa Mazza is also someone that I look up to a lot. I had the pleasure of working with a number of times. And just the strength of these women is so inspiring. And, they're the women who've paved the pathways that I walk on. And so I have immense respect for all the work that they've done and the hard yards that everyone who's come before us has done. That allows me now to be, in this life of privilege where I get paid to write my stories and nobody questions that. Whereas these people, these women and other artists that came before, they really struggled to be seen and heard and to be able to make their mark on the industry. So yeah, I can say those three ladies at least are huge inspirations.
Yeah. And you're a mum as well. You mentioned your son. How old is he now?
Yeah, I am a mum. My son's 23 now. He's 24 this year.
Yeah, he was born in 99.
99, yeah, that's right. Just before Y2K.
Yeah, that's the same as my son, same year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So what was it like being a single mum?
Oh, look, it was tough. I was with my son's dad. We got together really young. We were both teenagers when he was born. And so we kind of stuck it out for as long as we could. And eventually the best thing to do was to part ways and co-parent, which we managed to do. But certainly, yeah, being a single parent had its challenges, especially when, it came to having to rely on the other parent while I was doing, at acting school, or would be away on a gig, or need to be at rehearsals for an intense period. And so that became really hard. Luckily, again, was surrounded by some amazing people early on in my career in Adelaide that allowed me space to bring my son to work if I needed to. And in fact, there was even times I brought him into rehearsals while I was at TAFE, studying arts, So I was really blessed to have that opportunity. And it's something that I do now. If I'm running a rehearsal room, it's an open door policy. Family and friends are always welcome, within reason, of course. We still need to work, but absolutely, if you need to bring your bubbers in for the day, even if they're fur babies, bring them in.
That's a big opening for black fellas like us when you say bring whoever you want to come down.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. But I grew up, I used to go to my brother's gigs with him, and it might have just been like he would play Didge for Welcome to Country, or he'd go do like a gig at a school and teach the kids about some cultural stuff, do some dancing or something. But he would always drag us, his little sisters, along. And I know part of it was because he needed some more dancers, but the other part was because it was just kind of normal for us. And I used to drag my sister everywhere. I remember a friend asking me once, like, why do you always have to bring your tribe with you? And because they're my tribe. So yeah, I think it is. It's, it's good that we have that comfortability in our work, and not all workplaces can accommodate it.
Yeah. Couple of big questions at the moment. What do you see in Aboriginal affairs at the moment that might need to be changed?
Look, I think the biggest concern for me is that there's the people who have the capacity to get their voices heard, and then there's everyone else. And so at the moment, I think there's people who are having their voices heard that are speaking for the people, and then there's some people out there that aren't necessarily speaking for the people particularly in respect to the whole, statement from the heart business. I know there's a lot of people that oppose it. I know there's a lot of people that oppose, a voice in the Constitution. They would prefer a treaty. So I'm just treading cautiously, because I think if we don't take time and care with these matters, we could end up with a really raw deal, and that's not unusual for Australia. So I think as First Nations mob, we all need to just be patient with each other and walk this road really carefully together.
Yeah. What would you like to see change in the future? If I gave you a magic wand and $1 zillion, what would you want to do with that?
Look, a big part of my work in theatre is using theatre as a tool for prevention, intervention with our young ones. Like, I think giving them the tools, I would probably open like, creative schools in every community in Australia, every Aboriginal community in Australia, and equip it to the eyeballs, because our people are so naturally creative. It is our style of learning, is to use these cultural arts as our mediums, and our kids just respond so much better to the freedom of creativity. They just learn so much better. I think it's so I'd definitely invest in education for our young people, but teaching First Nations way.
Yeah. Are you seeing a lot of new talent coming up through the ranks?
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of young people out there. One of the things that I guess is a little bit not sensitive. It is sensitive. I guess there's one thing that I've noticed is that young fellas, if they are still on their journey to their identity or finding their heritage, they can often feel like their voice is not as valid. And I often tell young people that are on that journey to just own where they're at. You never have to pretend that you have a lived experience that you don't have. We're often told as black fellas or First Nations people, if you're black if you grew up black, but growing up black in Australia is different for a lot of us. There's no singular experience for an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person. So I think we all really need to broaden our horizons and understand that some of these young people, they haven't experienced the intergenerational trauma that others have, and vice versa. Some of them really still are in the thick of it. The experience is diverse among our young ones. So I think, we just got to be precious with them, help them along.
Yeah. A bit of a question. Do you find a lot of racism in the arts?
Look, I haven't personally experienced a lot of overt racism, but certainly there is still a strong culture within mainstream theatre to want to program the same type of stories. This I saw very evident with a show I did last year in Sydney. For example, an audience member walked out of a show that had 2 female performers, and they were grumbly, they were old, they were very old, they were very Caucasian, and they grumbled and said, "I just want to see David Williams." So, they just want to see David Williamson. They don't care about anything else. So I understand that there's a big part of our industry that wants to keep programming the same old white guys. And I think the need is changing. The palette of our audiences is changing. Yes, there's young ones coming up, and they don't want to see that anymore. So there is racism, but there's also just as many artists out here trying to break those structures down.
Yeah. Do you think more voices are starting to be heard, and Aboriginal stories are starting to come out in the media? I'm just thinking of, there's been TV shows in the past, like, Deborah Mailman on Secret Life of Us, or Alison on Water Rats. And one thing that they lasted so long on those shows is because their culture wasn't really talked about in the show, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, like no offense, ever no offense to any of those actors, because, we're all just getting by in this industry. Yeah. But definitely it's the more palatable characters. the more successful they're maybe going to be, because people, or as a society, we're not quite ready to tackle those big issues. I think more and more now, there's mob that are being seen. We also have quite a huge shift in the diversity of leadership that we have now. And so there are people out there in leadership roles that want to program more diverse viewing. They want to program more diverse creators, so that they then attract a more diverse audience. And, this is all forward thinking, because in 20 years' time, our young people are going to be our practitioners, and we want to be able to, bring them into an industry that they can see themselves reflected in.
Yeah. Is there still a stereotype, though? And I've seen some ads for actors before that says, can we have an Aboriginal looking actor? What does an Aboriginal looking actor
yes
look like?
Well, yeah, I'm sure you've got an image of what that might look like. Yeah, that still happens a lot, and that's, I guess, the ignorance of a lot of people in the industry, especially non-Indigenous mob, especially if they don't often work with mob. They don't understand how offensive that can be, especially, and this is a conversation going back almost 13 years that I had with an actor who had, they've done all the right things, but for some reason they're just not getting the gigs. Is it because they're either too black or not black enough? And this is the feedback they're getting constantly from casting directors, from directors, is, oh, you're just not the right look. It's not the right look. It's not the right look. But they want an Aboriginal actor. So definitely that comes into play. And you notice that it is changing, but it's, there's people out there that have got a lot to learn still.
Yeah. When audiences come to plays that you've been in, especially cultural plays, do you think they feel challenged at times when they see the content? Because sometimes it is quite upfront and quite out there, because the stories are coming out now with no, we're not fairy flossing topics anymore. We're saying it as it is.
Yeah. I feel like there was, the scales, interesting. The scales have been, in a different balance. Like once upon a time, the scales was so that as First Nations people, we had to make this shock theatre, and it was like, let's show them the rape scene, let's show them the genocide, let's show them the massacre, because they need to know that it's happening and it's not that long ago. Then it, for a little while, it tipped all the other way. It's like, no, let's have the Sunshine Club, let's have Brand New Day, let's not have this shock theatre. Let's make lovely family stories that everyone can enjoy. Now, I think we've come into a new era where we actually are able to just see the truth for what it is and go, does that make you feel uncomfortable? Because that's a truth, and I feel like Australia is, a lot of Australia is ready for that. We've got more allies than ever, more people who understand than ever. So we can finally be honest.
Yeah. And I think it's good that I think it's good that people do feel uncomfortable, because I think the true part of the first step in reconciliation is really for non-Indigenous people to have that feeling of uneasiness and learn how to reconcile that within themselves before they take on reconciliation with Indigenous issues outside of themselves.
So true. And I think it's probably a normal human reaction to want to deflect or to look outside for the problem or the solution. But yeah, definitely there's a lot to be said about Australians as individuals coming to terms with that in their own space, in their own mind and heart, and then really looking at what can they do to help, because we can't all solve it in ourselves, but together we can just gain a little bit more understanding one day at a time, and we'll get to a place where, things are better than they are now.
How do you define reconciliation to you?
To me, it's people not speaking for us anymore. for me, it's people, especially the government, allowing us to conceptualize things in our own methods. For example, that the Western style of governance, if that's a square, ours is a circle. And I think we need to be allowed to plant our circles in the government of this country, in the structures that run it. And that'll be true, like, reconciliation when we have an equal part in the running of this country. Even though we're 3% of the population, I think that's irrelevant. We should absolutely have a majority say in what happens on our lands.
Yeah. And do you feel like that sometimes those squares, they're trying to get our circles and kind of push them into it?
And push them into it. Yeah, absolutely. Instead of understanding that we're the ones with ancient knowledge, they might think it's outdated, but actually the reason we survived for tens and thousands of years is because something was working. Our style of governance and caring for country and living in symbiosis with it was successful. You know, we went through the trial and error period. They've only been here for a couple of 100 years, and, you know, things aren't working out too well. Look at the drought and flooding and stuff we've got in the country, fires, lots of things that they could be learning from our ancient methods, you know, lots and lots of things. It's including governance, I think.
Yeah. Are you finding that Indigenous knowledge is being taught in mainstream arts courses at the moment, in performance arts courses?
Not that I know of across the board. Certainly I know that I'll be teaching my storytelling skills from a First Nations perspective at VCA. I know, for example, up in Queensland at Akbar, the Aboriginal Centre for Performing Arts, they do a lot of cultural studies there in line with cultural arts. And also, I believe the AB Theatre course at WAPA, they do a 1-year AB Theatre course there. I'm pretty sure that there's a focus on making sure that the artists who attend that course are staying connected to community as well. So, you know, there's some places that are doing it, but it can always get further. It can always, you know, be furthered.
I think that's come up a couple of times. I've been doing some work at the Melbourne Arts Centre, and that's supporting Aboriginal artists that come to travel to Melbourne and then feeling quite isolated or alone, away from country. And they've asked me to come in and actually do a couple of sessions with them to see, just to help reground them. How hard is it being away from country to, you know, like, if all of a sudden they became quite famous and had to travel, how hard is it not being?
Yeah, look, it's really hard, especially for our young ones. And it's not uncommon in the industry for, you know, someone with little to no experience to be plucked from a remote or regional community because they have a look or they have a vibe. They get thrust into a limelight, and then there's little care around what happens to that young person or that young artist after the fact. There's been examples in the past of some of our young artists that have been thrown into the limelight and care hasn't been taken with their spirit after the big gig. And, you know, it's easy for them to kind of, be led astray, or feel like there's nobody who understands. I like to think that I and there's other artists out there play a part when we do come across young artists in the industry, that I love to be able to be that big sister or just be that, you know, little bit of a mentor if they need that. I'm always there for them. And one thing I do say actually to all young people that I work with, as soon as we finish our first session, is add me to your networks now. I'm part of your network. So making sure they understand that every interaction is important, and they have a village supporting them.
Yeah, that's really important to understand, that having mentors and having that connection, even if I don't always use it, but knowing it's there.
Yeah, just knowing it's there. Yeah, definitely. I know there's lots of people that have offered me support or advice or feedback, and, you know, if I don't take it up, it's usually because I've felt supported enough, just knowing that I have that support if I need it. Gives you, because that can be sometimes the difference between making it through and not.
Is there anything that you want to do in the future?
Yeah, look, it's funny that's was a question, because my work at VCA, I really want to embed some kind of pathways plan for First Nations people to be able to come and study at a mainstream school. I mean, like I mentioned, there's one in Queensland at the moment. There's the AB Theatre course at Whopper. VCA is a big school. It's a prominent art school in Australia, and we should be offering a First Nations specific course where people can come and study and be supported. Like, I think it's worth us looking at making sure there's host families, making sure there's some, great boarding accommodation. They're supported by the community here, because we have a great First Nations arts community in Melbourne, in Victoria. So yeah, I'd love to be able to put a pathways program in place, and have that sort of be my legacy when I finally move on from VCA. I've only just started. I'm not going anywhere. But, that's a long-term dream of mine, is to have that put in place.
Yeah. If you couldn't do what you're doing now, what would you like? What else could you be or would like to have been?
I probably I keep joking with my partner that I want a goat farm. But I think I like a hobby farm. I really love gardening and I love food and cooking. So I definitely can see myself being a bit of a hobby farm or horticulturalist or something.
Well, down where you're living now, there's still a possibility.
Yeah, definitely. I'm working on it, like hobby farm / arts retreat / performance venue.
Yeah. One thing, do you think Melbourne, our art scene down here, is it, when you're looking at other countries or other cities, how is the Melbourne art scene compared to others?
Oh, it's pretty great. I mean, it's vibrant. It's so diverse. I think if you have a niche, Melbourne, you will fit somewhere in Melbourne. You will find your tribe in Melbourne. I grew up in WA. There was few opportunities there. I then lived in Adelaide for a long time. I kind of felt like I got to a certain point where I couldn't get any further in Adelaide. Moving to Victoria, over the last 10 years, I've been able to grow as an artist so much and really stretch my creative tentacles into other areas I never thought I'd be able to. And now look at me, I'm working at a university and I'm writing and directing, another one of my shows, which is just something I didn't think I'd get to that, to be honest. So yeah, I think Melbourne art scene is an amazing nursery for artists. Sorry, that's my dog barking in the background.
You've mentioned your new show a couple of times. What has it got a name yet? Or
yes, so the show that I'm about to work on, it's called Goodbye Auntie Flo. Oh. And it's a First Nation women's health work. So it'll be traveling to communities around Victoria later on, but now we're doing like a metro tour to kind of gauge some interest. So it's at the moment, most of them are going to be closed women's event. Ovaries only, we're saying.
Yep.
And then we will have a public community performance where people can invite all the gents in their life.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Other significant others without ovaries.
Significant others, yes. That's right. But we're also trying to be inclusive. So we've like, is it ovaries only? What if you've had them removed or anything? So it's like, oh, maybe it's, assigned female at birth only. I don't know. There's so many different ways, but yeah, it's an important work, because I think the conversation around the particular topic is very much lacking in our community. So hopefully there's some enlightenment to come with that.
Yeah. I've only got a couple of other questions left, but the first one I've got is, if anyone's working, I know some schools watch some of my podcasts as well. If there is a young Aboriginal kid that wants to get interested in the arts, what would you recommend? What should they do?
I would recommend finding some arts in your local area. Find things that you can get to that don't cost a lot of money. Like, is there a local theatre group? Is there a local theatre even that maybe runs shows? I've called festivals and asked if they can give First Nations tickets for free. Ask your local theatre, hit them up, go to see as many shows as you can and put yourself in the spaces you want to be in. That's what I did. I forced my way into the industry like that. So, you know, if you want to do it, start doing it. Don't wait for someone to give you your big break. Just make it happen yourself.
Yeah. So those stories about, you know, just being in the coffee shop and some Steven Spielberg wanders in and goes, hey, I think you're the next big star, doesn't normally happen. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, I think that's like, you know, that's a fairy tale, and sure, it's happened, but the reality is 99% of artists out there are hard ass workers that have, you know, worked their butt to the bone and put in 150% on every job, and that's what gets them to where they are. I know I've put in, you know, a lot of work to get to where I am, and now I have to pinch myself sometimes and look back at where I started, because I'm like, wow, there was me doing, you know, mock medical interviews at one point, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good work, but I, you know, pass that on to the young ones to do now.
What's one or two key points that you'd want teachers at schools teaching Aboriginal kids to help nurture them and help them choose different pathways?
I would encourage them to focus on instilling a sense of giving children tools to express themselves. I think it's one of the greatest assets that a young person can gain. It's what I try to deliver when I do theatre workshops with children. It's always about not necessarily getting them to the point where they're these polished performers. If they can simply get up and express themselves and say, my name is, I am A, and I hope to be, you know, if they can at least have a little bit of self-awareness and expression, that could give them the strength they need to make a good choice over a bad choice. You know, luckily I was headstrong and I was going to make the choices I made anyway. But, you know, had I had someone give me that sort of insight to say, well, you can choose better, it's okay to stand up for yourself and say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get in a stolen car, or I don't want to drink, or I don't want to take drugs, you know, things like that. I think, instill confidence to express themselves and look at different ways of learning.
Yeah. Do you think education's the key for First Nations people?
Yeah, definitely. And also, education, both ways. Like, I think our mob have this inherent way of understanding the world, and that needs to be valued more. I certainly know that it's inherent to a lot of mob that I know to just, you know what's happening in nature, to notice things around them, to respond to those things, and that it's okay and it's valid, and it's not just a crazy thing to go, oh, you know, the sky's red, I think it's going to be hot tomorrow. You know, little things like that. These things are valid, these bits of information. So yeah, it's education both ways.
And my last question, Naz, is what is a key message you would like our viewers to walk away with?
Key message for me is to continue advocating wherever you can for mob, but also to look to the arts as tools that we can use. There's a lot in, you know, I'm in the theatre industry, which is mostly about plays, but playing, for me, it's our new way of doing ceremony. You know, it's our new way that we come together for a corroboree or for story sharing, information sharing. So we should start valuing our cultural arts as such. They are the ways that we share information with our younger generations, and we should start leaning into them in mainstream spaces. No longer is ours the add-on or the token or the, you know, like the frilly edge. We should be the main centerpiece.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Naz, I want to say thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's an honour and privilege to have you talk with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I love your work.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really great to chat. Where can I listen to the podcast?
Yeah, so it's on the Yirramboi YouTube channel. and it's about, our viewers don't know that, but it's about to change name in it very soon. There's a new logo, new stuff going up on the YouTube channel. So it'll be under a different name, but it will be located at the moment under the Yirramboi YouTube. So guys, I will see you all next time. And it was lovely to, you joining us. So thanks heaps. Bye.
Bye.
How was that?
Yeah, cool.
All right, I got up to the last question. I'm about to ask you the last question. I go, what's the fucking last question I had in my head?
How you going?
Good, how are you?
Good. I can hear you. I can hear you yarning, telling big stories. Used to. Oh, that's good. Anyway, I just want to say hello. Things are good with